and really looking forward to bringing you guys in as well for any particular insights. Pass it on to Max.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I am Max Basquiat Fortuna. I'm Haitian. I am working with CLE I've been working with CLE for 6 years now, and I am holding the position of Director of Programs. In the past, I've been in charge of all M&E and research activity. So we probably will do a quick introduction for CLE later on. So I'm glad you're all here for this session. And now I would like probably invite Kantav and his colleague Gwynel to introduce themselves, and then pass it back to Johnny to ask others to do so. Kantav?
I am the Executive Director of Partenariat pour le Développement Local, a Haitian organization working mostly in rural area in the north part of the country. We are deeply involved in promoting community organization, and we contribute to empower them to strengthen their capacity so they can assume their own development process. I'm very glad to meet you, to be with you, and I'm so glad to meet Johnny once again. Really nice to meet you.
Thank you very much, Kantav. And so what I'll do is just to facilitate this, I'll just basically just call your name, and you can just tell us which organization and where you are. So I'll start with Fiona.
A kind reminder to unmute, because sometimes you start talking.
I think everybody's muted, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, I'm Fiona, and I'm in Tasmania, and I'm part of the JED Institute, and it is currently 3 a.m.
Oh my gosh, wow. Thank you so much for joining us. Allison? You're on mute, Allison. There you go.
There.
There you go.
Alison Matthew from formerly Cody, now a Cody associate, living in Canada, Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Alison. Lisa?
I am actually just making a comment and asking if you could unshare the screen for a second so we can look at each other better.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yes, fantastic. My name is Lisa Elena. I am European, but I live in Kenya. I've lived in Kenya for the last 11 years, and I work for an organization that is called World Agroforestry Center, ICRAF, one of the international research centers that are part of the CJR, which is the consultative group of international agricultural research centers. I've been working with many of you for the last, I think, 7 or 8 years, and I'm really happy to see all of you.
Wonderful. I would say that we're gonna go to Gord, but his name say Cody. So I'll say Cody, please, it's your turn.
Greetings, everyone. Gord Cunningham from the Cody Institute Extension Department here at St. Francis Xavier University behind me. Absolutely delighted. I've been involved in a tangential way since the very beginning of CLE, and I'm really looking forward to this. So,
Joe.
I'm not sure if it's me or not, but
it's you, yes. Carson.
I'm Joe Carson. I am in Memphis. I work with the Memphis Dream Center. We just help people restore their dreams by meeting their needs and helping them move forward in life.
Thank you. Tessie?
Yes, I'm Tessie Molina, and I'm from La Casa here in Goshen, Indiana. We're like 2 hours east of Chicago, so you have an idea of where we're at. And we are a nonprofit agency that assists with home ownership and rehab, as well as financial empowerment and affordable housing.
Thank you. Brianne.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see you. I am coming from you live in Nova Scotia, Canada, at the Coady Institute virtually. And it's thanks so much for putting this on. It's great.
Thank you. Christina?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Christina. I am based in Baltimore. I work at Morgan State University. I'm an assistant professor, and I'm an architect. And right now I'm in beautiful California.
Nice, nice. Glenda?
I am from close to Vancouver, BC. I'm like 5 hours away to the east in Canada. And I work with the Tamarack Institute, and I work with Heather, who greeted us all today. So we work in the world of deepening communities.
Oh, Canada is so big that you can actually say I'm 5 hours away from Vancouver to kind of give people a sense of where you are. Thank you, Glenda.
5.5 if you're in Newfoundland.
There you go. Claudia?
Hello, everyone. I'm Claudia Francis.
You have a little bit of feedback, but that's all right.
Okay, that's okay now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Claudia.
Oh, you muted yourself, Claudia.
Okay, so it's good now.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Claudia Francis. I'm Haitian. I am an assistant communication manager at CLE, the Haitian Center of Leadership and Excellence.
Thank you, Claudia. Howard, we don't see you, but we'll hopefully hear your wonderful voice. Yes.
Sorry,
all right, Howard.
I will be on video for the entire time shortly. I'm Howard Rosing from the Stain Center at DePaul University in Chicago. And we are also honored to be the host for the Asset-Based Community Development Institute, which is housed in our center. So I'm pleased to be here as originally your Zoom host.
Thank you so
although
much.
now I've passed that on to Lucia. So thank you for including me.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Oh, Howard is now I don't see your name. This gentleman with glasses. Your name doesn't show.
Aaron?
Aaron?
Appel?
Yes.
Hey.
There you go. Your name shows now.
I'm sorry, I missed the check-in. I was just getting off of a work call. But I'm Aaron, and I'm calling from Philadelphia. Was there like a question?
No, that's it.
Okay, cool. It's great to meet everybody.
Wonderful. Andy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Andy Langell. I am based in Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada. And I work for Phoenix Youth Programs. It's a youth serving agency for ages 16 to 24 for youth who may face various barriers. And my particular role, I am an employment counselor.
Wonderful. Casey?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you for having me. I am Cassie Bauer. I'm calling from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I'm with a River Edge Nature Center. We have been introduced to ABCD through an IMLS grant over the last 3 years, working with some rural communities on empowering citizens to make positive changes to impact the watershed. So healthy freshwater resources in rural communities. And I am excited to learn from the cohort here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Salzonia?
Hello, everyone. I'm Sal from South Africa, particularly a tiny little town called Nopert in the Northern Cape. It's a rural community, extremely impoverished, and I work for a company called the Nopert Wind Farm. We invest in the community to affect local economic development. So I'm very interested to see how you did that in Haiti. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us from South Africa. Wonderful. Well, thank you. Did I miss anyone? If there's anyone that I might have missed, please just unmute yourself and introduce yourself just in case. Okay.
If possible, Johnny, Contav, it'd be great for Ronel to introduce himself as well. Hi, Ronel.
Hi, Ronel. I'm sorry. Yes, you are here.
Hi, Johnny. Hi, everyone. This is Ronel from Haiti. I work as a program assistant for PDL, so I'm very happy to be with you.
Thank you so much, Ronel. And in the meantime, we're going to ask, I'm going to go through the agenda, and then we're going to ask Max to put it on the screen, to share it. Lucia, if there's anybody else that comes in, you can let them in, and then let me know so that we can maybe, say hello to them. But just to go through very quickly, the agenda we have for today, we've gone through the introduction. I'm going to be giving a bit of context about Haiti. I will keep it extremely brief, but just to make sure we situate everyone in terms of, the country that we're going to be talking about. Then I will pass it over to our colleagues in Haiti, Ronel and Contav, to give us some context about the community where we actually did the particular projects and where we have the case studies. Then we'll talk a bit about the analysis of approach that we use to engage in the project. We'll talk some more about the CLE and PDL approach, which will be done, both of these will be done by my colleague, Lucia. And then we'll jump into, well, let me just step back. Once we've given the context, I apologize. Once we've given the context, we're going to ask you to kind of brainstorm with us based on the problems that you've heard, right? As practitioners, how would you approach working with these communities, these two communities, right? So before we jump into how we did it, we're gonna engage you first, right? To get your idea how you would have approached the work that you would do with these communities. And then we would go into how CLE actually engaged in the project that he did, in the two case studies. One will be sort of has a focus on service. The other one has a focus more on a community value chain analysis kind of a project. And we'll then, once you've gone through these two cases, we'll break you up into two groups. So we'll go into two separate rooms, and Lucia is in charge of doing that. She'll give us instruction in terms of how that will be done. And we'll have some time to, about 15, 20 minutes or so, to go in these rooms and kind of talk about, those case studies and some what you think could be done better. And then we'll come back and we'll do the reporting, and we'll close with a video of one of the projects that we had done. So that's how we're going to be spending our time right now. So I'm going to jump in right now into the context. And so, as I said, and as you've heard, we are going to be talking about Haiti. And for those of you who don't know, Haiti's in the Caribbean. It is about probably an hour and a half by plane from the United States, from Miami. You probably, if not, I'm sure everybody knows of Miami, but at least, Cuba next door, Jamaica. So we're right there in the Caribbean basin. We are, as a country, a couple of facts about Haiti. Next slide, Max. So 27,000 square kilometers. We have a population of about almost 11 million people. These numbers are estimated numbers. We were supposed to do a recensement, comment on dit ça en anglais, Max? Max, Lucia.
I missed it.
A census.
A census, thank you. Can you imagine, I'm the one who's in the United States and I'm asking Max, how do you say census? That's the French and Creole in my head right now. So about 11 million people. Some people say even 12 million, but the official number from government right now, it's about 10.7. The breakdown in terms of the population, we are 95% Black, about 5% white, mulattoes. Mulattoes obviously were folks who were descendant of mixed heritage between the slaves and the French colonizers. Religiously, we are, they say, pretty much all Haitians, basically our religion from Africa, really Vodou. But a lot of people officially say themselves they're Catholic or Protestants. Those are the main religions that we have in Haiti. When we talk about Protestants, we have subcategories that are Baptist, Pentecostal, and Adventist, Seventh-day Adventist, and Methodist. Our official language, we have two. One is French, the other one is Creole. Pretty much, if you are Haitian, you speak Creole. So it's 100% of Haitians speak Creole. But really, really well, maybe 30% of the population speaks French. But both are official language, and very often if you go into public services, people tend to try to speak French because it's sort of considered educated. I mentioned we are 27,000 square kilometers. Forget the dollar sign in front of the 66, but it's a 66% arable land. We wanted to bring that up only because Haiti is mostly an agricultural economy still. And so a lot of the folks that we work with are in the rural areas, and many of them are working the land in agriculture. Although more and more, the trend that we've seen in Haiti is the same that we've seen in other places in the world, where urbanization is happening at a very fast pace. You'll go next. We wanted to give you some quick economic indicators because we thought that it was important to kind of give you some comparison. And so we wanted to compare Haiti with our neighbor next door. The island is separated into two, Haiti on the east and the Dominican Republic on the west. So in terms of GDP, this is from the World Bank numbers as of 2018. Our GDP is about $9.6 billion. Next door, the Dominican Republic, it's 85 billion. And mind you, they have just about the same population of about 11 million people. Our GDP per capita is about $800. It actually was $856. It went down from last year, and it's probably going to go down again in 2020 because of everything that we know about. Economy went down, etc. Whereas next door, the GDP per capita was around $8,600. Inflation in Haiti was about 17.3%. Next door is 2%. And again, when we're talking about these numbers, when we get to 2020, certainly they will get much worse, certainly for both countries, but definitely much worse for Haiti because our economic situations were worse. And our Human Development Index, we ranked 169 out of 189 countries. I see Gord had a question. I'll just respond to it now. Would the DR have taken a huge GDP hit due to loss in tourism? Absolutely, Gord. They were hit very, very badly, obviously because their economy is based on tourism, and as a result, they were hit much worse than we were because we have less tourism in Haiti. And so, yes, they've taken a big hit. I believe the country has started to reopen. Haiti is going to be reopened June 30th at the end of this month. And I don't know whether they've picked a date yet for the DR, but I know that they're gradually reopening, sort of their government offices already reopened, not school, but tourism not yet. Wanted to give some other context. For those who don't know, Haiti is the first and only place in the world where slave rebellion led to an actual independent country. And that happened in 1804. Haiti's culture is a mosaic of everything that makes up who we are as Africans, as well as, there were the original American Indian who lived there, and of course, the mix with the European that has made for a mix of people, of culture, of food, of music, of art, and everything. You may know some very famous Haitians. For our friends in Canada, you know Michaëlle Jean, who certainly was your governor for a number of years. She is of not just Haitian descent. She was born in Haiti and went to Canada as a young person and eventually rose to the position of governor of Canada. You might have heard of Jean-Baptiste Pointe-du-Sable, who is in fact the founder, you may not know this, of Chicago. And I wanted to point that out because we're being hosted by DePaul University. And so Chicago was founded by someone of Haitian descent. For those of you who love to read, Alexandre Dumas, French writer, you might have heard The Three Musketeers, The Count of Monte Cristo, is of Haitian descent. Joseph Laroche is a Haitian who actually died on the what's the ship? Why is my
Titanic.
Thank you. Who died on the Titanic? He was a doctor, and he and his wife and his children were on the Titanic, and one of the rare few Blacks who were actually making that voyage. And so, we're everywhere. And of course, I wanted to highlight one other very young and very famous among, a lot of very famous young people. Jean-Michel Basquiat, whose mother's Haitian and his dad is Puerto Rican, who is a very famous artist, a graffiti artist. He started as a graffiti artist in New York City. And very recently, one of his pieces, I believe, sold for over $100 million. He's dead. He's dead, unfortunately. But so all this to say that Haitian and Haitian art and Haitian music and Haitian people of Haitian descents are all over the world. Just wanted to point out a few of different arts that one could see. The Haitian art. They they've kind of categorized them into either naive or modern art. The modern tend to view it as the naive as sort of a negative connotation, and so they've sort of evolved that into more modern tradition and style. And then you have Jean-Michel Basquiat, who's wanted to put one piece, which was very famous as well, The Irony of the Negro Policeman, in terms of he's thinking around, and this is relevant to what's happening today, after the George Floyd situation and the issues with the police, is how, an African-American who's in the police, how do they sort of, think of these two roles that they have, both as African-American and police officers. And so this piece depicted that dichotomy. So that's the basic introduction that we wanted to very quickly go through. I will highlight next, Max. So I will highlight, before I pass it on to Cantav and Ronel, I wanted to highlight the two areas that we're going to be focusing on in Haiti. So you'll see the white circles. One is in the north department, and it's called La Victoire, the victory. and the other one is in the L'Artibonite. Max is pointing them out. It's a community called Saint-Michel de la Talaye. So those are the two communities that we've focused on for these two case studies. And so I'll pass it on to Contav and Ronel to give us a little bit more context about the region.
Thanks, Johnny. We'll start with La Victoire first. La Victoire is a small district in the Northern Department. It's a very small district with only one communal section with about 12,000 people. But it is surrounded by other districts like Pillon, Rankit in the north, Montbain-Cauchy in the northeast, and Cerca-Cavajal in the Central Plateau. This small district, La Victoire, is sometimes the population feel that they are being oppressed by the other big district like Pillon, like Rankit, and even by Montbain-Cauchy in the northeast, in terms of regional decision-making process, because the population is low, and also the political decision are mostly being made by the big district like Pillon, Rankit, and Montbain-Cauchy. And also other challenges being faced by the La Victoire population is limited access to microfinance structures. But at the same time, La Victoire has some good opportunities, and among them, a good forest cover, essentially with fruits. And there is a good opportunities to develop fruit as a value chain, especially with cashews. And also, the population of La Victoire is very interested in learning about how to liberate themselves, how to contribute to participatory decision-making process, and how to make decisions for their own district in order to solve their own problems. And this is a really good opportunities for PDL and other organizations working with the La Victoire community. And also, there is an opportunity to access the national number 3 road crossing the Central Plateau in the north to linking Port-au-Prince and Cape Haitian through the Central Plateau. And essentially, currently, they are improving the road, and this will offer La Victoire a good opportunity to reach both the north and the Central Plateau in the West Department. On the other side, yes. This is,
maybe
okay.
you want to give some details?
Yes, La Victoire is a very small district. And then we'll go to Saint-Michel. Saint-Michel is a big district with 8 communal sections and a population of over 150,000 people. Among the problems being faced by the Saint Michel population is the insecurity. And there are several places in which the gangs are making the law, and they are operating openly, and the local authorities sometimes are dealing with them, but cannot really control the actions. Another problem in Saint Michel de la Talaye, the population is dealing with a big issue with deforestation, because the main crop in Saint Michel de la Talaye is sugarcane, and they are making alcohol with the sugarcane, and to cook the syrup and to transform it into alcohol, they use wood. And now they are currently attacking the fruit trees because there are almost no more forest trees to cut down to cook the alcohol. And also, Saint Michel is facing the challenge of poor access to other big cities. It is part of the Artibonite, but the road from Saint Michel city to the national #1 road is really bad. And it is even worse for the Saint Michel population to reach the neighboring district, Saint Raphael. The road is really, really bad. And now, among the most, the biggest problems, the biggest challenges being faced by the Saint Michel population, I did mention 3. But at the same time, Saint Michel has a lot of opportunities, and among them, it is the great water resources. And Saint Michel is being crossed by a lot of small rivers with running water all year long, although they are not very large irrigation systems. And also, the alcohol produced by Saint Michel de la Talaye, CLE and Saint Michel, is well known all over the country, all over Haiti, and even Haitians living in Canada and the States are still asking for CLE and Saint Michel, and this is really a very good opportunity to grow for the Saint Michel population. And also,
I apologize. I'm just would like to comment on Allison Matthew, who requested information if there's any opportunities for renewable energy alternatives or solar energy in Saint Michel, or maybe that was in La Victoire, either or. So just comment on that when you have a second.
Okay. Thanks. And should I stop or can I conclude?
No, please conclude, of course.
Okay, and then also, Saint Michel, it's a very large district, but with a huge plateau, a savandian, that can produce a lot of crops, but people can develop other activities to improve the life of the population. And also at the cultural level, Saint Michel has a lot of places very visited, like the cave of Saint Francis, and also there are places in L'Hermite and also La Talaye very visited by the population. And then also this geographical position between the bordering the Artibonite department, Central Plateau department, and the North department, and then all of those are opportunities for Saint Michel to grow. And then PDL and CLE, we have make some experiences with both Saint-Michel de la Talaye and La Victoire. And you can see through the video they will present later. Thanks.
So just to get a quick, we showed a few of these maps here. So just in La Victoire, Max, if you could go back to that, just to give a little bit of context, La Victoire is about 3% of the entire department in terms of the budget that they share, and is about 2.5% in terms of population. Very, very small. I don't know how many there are. Looks like something like 15 communes. And then Saint-Michel, which counts for 8% of the population of the Artibonite, it has 4% of the budget. So just to move through those in their last minute.
Thank you, Lucia. Just to answer the question that Allison had. So Allison, yes, there are tremendous opportunities in both areas. Obviously, I mean, these are areas that have opportunities for wind energy, certainly for solar energy, which we have, you know, in Haiti a lot of, but definitely more specifically in terms of what they produce when we talk about sugarcane, that can be transformed into biofuel and do other things. So there are tremendous opportunities, but we're nowhere near to be able to take advantage of those things because of the sort of capital investment that are required to do that. And so what we'd like to do now that we've talked to you, we've talked, you know, for the last half hour or so in terms of giving you some context of both Haiti as well as the region. I'll say just two things just before I send you away with a question or have a discussion with you on a question. That is, as you think about these two places and what Kantav had has just talked about, he mentioned a couple of things, if I can just go back to that, and that the challenge, one of the key challenges like a place like La Victoire had is limited access to basic financial services because they're small, they're very far away, they'd have to go to big cities. They don't have access to, you know, they're not able to influence policymaking and those kinds of things. As it relates to Saint-Michel, the challenge that they have and opportunities that they have is that on the one hand, they have a lot of insecurity, and low access to get their products to market because of poor road conditions. But they have a huge opportunity in terms of a lot of water resources and a product, Clairin, which is white rum, that is produced in the area, and it is known, obviously, you know, in the whole country, but certainly beyond Haiti, people in the diaspora, and this is rum that's being sold in other places here in the States, in Canada, in the UK. So they have a tremendous opportunity, an asset. So what we'd like to turn to is, as practitioners, given this context, and obviously, you know, we could give you a lot more, right? And you probably, if you were going to work on a particular initiative, you'd need a lot more information. But with the basic information that you have right now, one question we wanted to talk through together is, how would you approach the situation of working with these two communes? And, you know, from your perspective, what approach would you use? I mean, obviously it's ABCD, but how would you engage with these communities?
Johnny, just to comment, Gord posted a question that I think is relevant for this analysis concerning whether the Dominican Republic is a big market for the agricultural products made in this region. So Kantav, maybe you can answer that question. Kantav? I believe you are on mute.
Yep.
Unmute you.
Well, I can take a stab at it to sort of say, yes, The DR is definitely a market, it is a market for Haitian products. And that's a big challenge for us. What tends to happen is these communes are not adjacent, but are closer to get to the DR than it is to get to the capital. And so what tends to happen is sometimes, you know, you have business people from the DR who actually hire Haitians to buy products and produce from the Haitian market, bring it to the DR, package it, and then send it back to Haitian supermarkets to sell, you know, at multiple X, you know, multiplier. So the DR is always a market for Haitian products. And before the DR, Haiti used to export to a lot of the other islands who were not good producers, right? And who had actually looked at where they had the most competitive and comparative advantages. So they focused on tourism, right? And Haiti was focused on agriculture. So we used to export quite a bit to other countries in the Caribbean, but the DR is always a big market back and forth between the two countries, and take very much advantage of their capacity to transform, right? Because value added comes from the transformation as opposed to growing. And so they really take advantage of buying our raw products and transforming it and send it back to us.
Another question from the chat from Allison Matthew, which will also be helpful to this. Contav, this is a question for you. In terms of how is sugar cane cropping organized? Smallholders, is it corporate, cooperatives, is it by contract? Looking specifically at the San Michel producers region.
Mostly with smallholders families, but not really big corporate. No, we didn't meet any big corporate or co-ops, but smallholders and all over, and they are acting almost all over the district, but not really big plantation like what we made in Dominican Republic.
Can you repeat the last sentence, Contav?
I said that the smallholders families, they are acting all over the district, but no big corporate like when we visit Dominican Republic, and they are very large plantation managed by big corporate, but in Saint Michel de la Taille, mostly at the family level.
And this is in contrast to the Dominican Republic, he also said, which has much more corporate plantations.
Oh yes, yes, definitely. And I want to get us to the question, but obviously, one of the things that the Dominican Republic did in terms of being able to produce more, even though now they're mechanizing a lot of stuff, they had a lot of Haitians who moved to the Dominican Republic to cut sugarcane on those plantations. And we don't want to open that can of worm. It's a very complicated and difficult issue. But yes, it's more professionalized on the Dominican side versus Haiti, as Contav said, is individual farmholders. But the point I wanted to make is how important that particular crop is to that district. Mostly everybody is involved in it in some way or the other, even if they use other crops around it. But one of the main crops that they use one way or the other is to grow either on their own land or on leased land to grow sugarcane. So how would you, since you raised the question, Allison, and you're too professional, you're too experty for this, but how would you engage, let's just say the community of Saint Michel, where they produce, we say they produce a lot of sugarcane. How would you engage with that community? What approach would you use to we call you and we say, we need you to come down and help us work with this community, what would be the first couple of things you recommend, Allison?
I am going to throw that right back at you. I would say don't bring in external professionals. You know the answers yourselves. So I'm not going to answer that.
All right. So the question.
I just think it's really interesting to know, how people are organized already. I mean, I would want to know, how are people organized already to produce a livelihood? And, how can that be used as a starting point? That's all I'm
Anything else? Thank you. Anyone else has maybe similar experiences? It doesn't necessarily has to do with Saint Michel or La Victoire, which obviously, you just heard about, but any similar experiences that you could sort of share and say, this is how we approach this and our work.
Heather, I guess you raise your hands. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Heather.
Hi. So I agree with Allison. I wouldn't, as an external person, come in and do the work. But what I would do is I would work with local champions. So I'd be behind the scenes. And I would work with the local champions, and I probably would ask a couple questions or have them host conversations with their own networks about what was this place like 20 years ago? In the good old days, right? What was it like 20 years ago? What is it like today? And what would you like to see in the future? And then to get at individual assets and gifts, I would ask, what gift or asset do you have that you can contribute to this new vision? But I wouldn't be asking that. These would be questions that those who live in the community would be hosting with their own networks that they have.
Great.
Lisa?
Yes, Lisa?
Just on the same point, I think one of the things, so I've never been to Haiti, so I'm all of the things I believe I know them from other people's stories. So I say that with all of the distance and humbleness that I can have. So one of the things I believe to have understood about Haiti is that there's a very strong dependency syndrome because of all of the aid activities that have been going on, especially after the earthquake. And I believe that is like the elephant in the room that really has to be addressed in any kind of activity that is being undertaken. And if we fail to recognize that political dimension, if you will, it becomes really complicated. And so in our context, the way we're trying to do that, really based also in relation to Heather's comment, is when you choose, you have to be very careful who you work with, because a perfectly good program, a perfectly good project can fail if you work with people with whom that is not aligned, or with whose expectations and with whose capacities that is not aligned. And I think that is one of the things that is really important. One of the points that I'm always trying to make within my institution is, yes, I believe we all believe that ABCD can work in any context, but we have to be really careful for how we phase it, how we sequence it, and how we introduce it. And one of the things that I believe we all believe in is running with what works, right? So we try and see what people do interesting stuff, and we work with them, and we try and inspire other people by making sure that these examples are being highlighted and exemplified. So I believe one of the things and what I would believe would be important in that context, in your context, would really be to understand where are the people who show true dedication and self-drive, and make sure that you collaborate with them, because you risk to emphasize very dependency-driven activities, even when you showcase champions, if you're not very careful about how those champions came about. And no one says that it's bad to have support in life. We all need support, and we all support it, and that is why we are where we are. But to really understand which actors can have the vision, can carry a similar vision to what you have, and can actually run with it without you being present. I really believe that is one of the basic failures, if you will, that many institutions engage in, that they don't select carefully enough with whom they collaborate. and therefore they risk failure.
Yeah.
So yes, that's like one of the things I believe in, like, is like particularly in the Haitian context, but in many contexts, as far as I understand, really making sure that you collaborate with people whose mentality as individuals, but also as a group, has not been corrupted so irreversibly by dependency, so that those people can become outstanding examples of people actually doing their thing. And we all know that seeing is believing, and we all know the inspiration we can get from people doing their thing. So being very careful about selection, I believe, is important.
Super. And we'll talk through a little bit of how what you just said, Lisa, influence our own processes and what we're going to be talking about. Anyone else want to share?
Yogesh has
his, yeah.
Okay. Yogesh?
Cheating a little bit with Yogesh.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Yogesh. Hi.
Yes. Hi. Nice to see you all.
Same here.
And hear this. So we did that workshop. I don't know how 5 years back. In Haiti on value chains.
3 years.
Yeah. So in that, I think one thing was very, very clear, that group, and I think Kanta was there and the whole group was there. This is not about just focusing on one product, because that's too risky if you focus all the resources on one product or one value chain. I think it's all about diversifying and having a portfolio of products, because the livelihoods are so complex. You don't want to risk everything in one product or one value chain. And that's when I think we had several sort of products selected, and we did the analysis. And then one of them was that what you call the local rum.
Yes, clairin, the sugarcane.
Yeah, clairin, right? And that came out like as one that people were naturally doing. And we had actually done the whole analysis of identifying what are some of the bottlenecks, and one key one was around the quality control and non-traceability of like some really high quality rum that was made in Saint Michel, and by the time it reached Port-au-Prince, you actually can't tell whether it was from Saint Michel or somewhere else, because there's absolutely no traceability, and you couldn't. And then there was mixing in the local market. So like such a high quality product was sold at so low prices, so that nobody was actually appreciating the quality. And one of the things we had identified that time, that okay, yeah, you need to support those. There was some youth in that group who were actually producing high quality, and what they needed was some support in terms of value addition and branding and marketing. So I wonder if that and a lot of that was also identified when we looked at the groups that Kanta was working in terms of aggregating the demand and looking at some of the packaging and processing, locally driven processing and packaging. So I wonder if some of that was followed up, because that was like quite an opportunity that came up from the community, that okay, we have this unique product, and in order for us to compete with the big rum making businesses in Port-au-Prince, we need to have this niche, high quality local rum that we can sell as a niche product. And what was needed was I think they were already making it. So it was not so much in terms of making a new product. It's just basically tracing it, packaging it properly, and branding it.
Great. Yes. And I know your question. I will answer it, but I will answer it at the back end, because it is one of the case studies, in fact, that we'll be talking about. So we have 2 case studies. One of them is going to be about clairin, and the other one, one in each of the districts. So, well, thank you everyone for participating. We're going to, if there aren't any other comments, no other hands up, okay, then Max, we'll go into Lucia. We'll pass it over to Lucia to give you some context about clay and the work that we've been doing.
Hi, everyone. So yes, Max, if you could go over to that slide. So PDL and clay, we're here together to present the 2 sides of the work that we did in this project that lasted from 2014 until 2019. Recently closed, but PDL is an organization that is on the ground. They have been working in some version of an organization. PDL is currently existing over the past, I think, 10 years. Contact. But prior, they had relationships with other organizations in this region for over 30 years. And so in this region that we looked at, they have offices in most of the regions that we are focusing in. They run continuous ongoing programs in terms of capacity building for farmers organizations, education, health, community credit savings and loans initiatives, all different kinds of initiatives working with a large network of grassroots organizations through their network. So CLE and PDL are a very strong partner. So this is some of the representation of the participants. Thank you, Max. So CLE and PDL, PDL is a founding partner of CLE as well. And so this collaboration was really based on Contav Jean-Baptiste's desire to expand the scope of work with the organizations in his network, in the PDL's organizational network, to include the local government officials and to include the private sector. To say we're working to build up the capacity and the skills and the impact of local grassroots organizations, but if we're not bridging this capacity with the local government, with the resources that are coming down from public investments, as well as with private investments. And if we don't explain this and create platforms where all these different sectors can speak a language of assets, of collaboration, of collective leadership, of building solidarity and building alignment to understand where the opportunities are, address where the problems are, and come together to meet the objectives of the community that have been collectively determined. And so this program, I'm biased, of course, but I really have to say that in terms of the complementarity of the partners, and Lisa, you talked about this question of selecting your partners to make sure that you are culturally, philosophically, as well as operationally aligned in terms of how it is that you can work together. There are many ways in which that can be, I might want to say, accelerated. But oftentimes, not unfortunately, but oftentimes it is just a process of time. It is a process of spending time together, building relationships together, building programs together. For example, like I said, this program was really not built by CLE. It was built by PDL, and the partnership was developed because of how clearly CLE ended and clearly PDL began. And so in terms of the partnership, PDL being a full-time on-the-ground community organization working in each of these project regions, focusing in the areas that we were focusing on, and CLE working as an organizer at a more systemic level and bringing in bridging activities, training activities that brought together not only participants from the networks of PDL, but also representatives from local government, representatives from the local private sectors. And this program was very geographically focused. And so essentially we were working in a project region of 7 communes. So in the map previously shared, we will share this PowerPoint as well. The communes that we worked in are highlighted. They're all adjacent and in the lower north of Haiti. In each of these different communes, we brought together leaders from across different sectors, many of whom PDL had been working with for a long time, and many of whom from our networks we had relationships with, and then mapping for all the key actors outside of both of these networks to be at around the same table, as well as awareness raising activities, a lot of media activities, media campaigns, and research. So complementing the work that PDL does every day in these areas with a strong platform for ABCD and leadership training and accompaniment. So I've actually already gone into the next slide a little bit, but you can see, yes, okay, so the project overview, as with all of us understanding ABCD very well, at its core, this project was looking to enable sustainable development, focusing on local resources and creating platforms where these actors can bring together all the different opportunities that they are seeing with partners that were able to support them in a variety of different intensive as well as light ways. Overturning dependencies that have been developed in large part because of external aid. Contav Jean-Baptiste can speak for hours on this question, but he has lived through many different waves of external aid influxes, tendencies, and waves in the region. And so to really focus on building internally what grassroots organizations have as their strategic value, have as their core drivers, to really build up that foundation in which they can work together, in which they understand what they all have agreed upon what they're working together for, is really, really important. And then recognizing the wealth inherent to each community to launch shared goals for community development based on assets. Next slide, please, Max. And so just very quickly, the idea was over the past 5 years to create platforms, training programs, master trainer programs. Yogesh was the co-facilitator for the master trainer program that we led specifically on livelihood markets. So to have a long running series of training programs, research activities, case studies that highlight successes, accompaniment activities that continue to support in terms of technical assistance, and then awareness raising activities to bring a lot of the information at that systemic level. For example, local investment from government going down to each different commune, investment allocations from private sector, investment allocations from public sector, and different tools for advocacy, understanding how different goals had been developed for each different commune, and bringing together the key leaders that could advocate for changes in that investment, both using top-down government resources as well as focusing primarily through the training programs on the resources that are at the ready to be used and to be mobilized towards the different objectives that have been developed. So just really quick overview of some of the program outcomes. So 69% of the participants started new partnerships and 80% cited new relationships. So overall, we engaged about 700 local leaders from government, from community grassroots organizations, and the private sectors. And as we all know, trust, I apologize, I have my son screaming in the background. We all know trust and, as Lisa said again, alignment on objectives and alignment on the process by which we work and how that's very, very important to our ends is really important. And so to build stronger relationships and to build access between different sectors in each community, in each geographic community, was very, very important. 67% of the participants launched new community development initiatives. There was no external support, there was no funding coming from CLE or PDL for any of these particular initiatives. So the ones that we're going to be talking about really are fully financed locally. And yes, mentality shift towards more inclusive, collaborative, self-reliant civil society. Leaders, you know the drill, that's a bit of jargon, but in any case, we can continue.
All right.
Next slide, please. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and so from there, I'll pass it over to Max, who will explain the first case study.
Well, thank you, Lucia, and thank you, Johnny and Katav, for the presentation you did already. Just to mention that Corinne, the case study we're going to present, Corinne is from La Victoire. And La Victoire is one of the smallest municipality in Haiti, as opposed to Saint-Michel, I think, is the second biggest municipality in Haiti. So the story behind Corinne really started with the kind of relationship Katav and his organization, has built with the members of this community. And when we decided that we're going to design this program, we seen that, and it was decided with the participant that one of the elements that they would want to improve is to have trainings to better understand some concept and have more technical skills to improve their livelihood. And we started this relationship with them by offering a 5 days training, and half of this training was focused on ABCD. So presenting the concept, presenting the new approach of development, and seeing, proposing a new way of seeing the community and looking at resources, looking at value-based development instead of need-based development, asset-based development, as opposed to need-based development. And from this training, 30 of the 32 founding members took part of this training, and they went back to their community and started to share their new knowledge and the new ideas that were discussing during the training with others. And during the program, we decided that we needed to improve their ability to, first of all, understand how the markets operate. The livelihood and market module seems a very good one to deliver. And the fact that most of these participants, they showed a very big interest in transmitting and replicating this training, we decided that we're going to do it in a master trainer way. So that's where we partner with Cody and have Yogesh come down to Haiti and present a training with myself and Johnny on livelihoods and market. And after that training, the participant went back to their community and Kantav did some more work with them, particularly on the leaky bucket. So the leaky bucket, I assume that you probably all of you know this tool that we often use to explain or to show how financial resources are moving around in the community. So the input arrows are resources that come in the community, and the output arrow are the money or the resources that are going out of the community. But what we've seen is that every time we use this tool, the best fit, the best application that the participant do with it is to see it as a family budget tool. So that's how Kantavitz himself started using this tool more and more to help people sort of understand better how to manage their personal budget, their family budget, and improve it or grow it into the community. And I remember one participant of the master trainer program, and that will be one of the key leaders of Coril, once said that before the training, I was gambling. I would spend most of my savings, most of my money to play lottery, and that's true. Sometimes I win, but when I do the math, mostly I would lose my money instead of gaining money. And when Kantav and our team, we presented this tool, the one thing that she said is that there is something we can do with this. So that's when they had this idea to go back to the community to present the tool and to discuss how can we, this is a very good and interesting tool, so how can we put it into practice? So they get together, they deliver the training, and they decided that they're gonna do a credit union, because one of the key challenges that we're facing is access to credit. So they got together and engaged two other people in the community, and the 32 of them started a credit union association. So basically, this credit union that started with 32 people in April 2018 has been able to engage 113 people in July in 2019, and I believe Katav, you can add to that, but this number is still going up because more and more people in the community are starting coming in to Korean as a community organization institution and be part of the initiative. But what's most interesting is that they decided that they're gonna start the credit union with $5 with a $5 monthly contribution by everybody, and when they started, they had $152, the equivalent in goods, the equivalent of what they contributed, and dollar was $152. And about a year later, they were able to mobilize about $9,500. And in addition to that, they've been able to invest in a community store that, sell products that they couldn't find very easily in their community, because this community is very small and have very few economic activity. And one of the things that they reported, the members of Coril, but other members of the community, especially the mayor that we talked with, and some other key leader in the community, is that more people are reported that this Coril initiatives allowed them to have better access to credit, because before, what they would do is to take loans from individuals, and those loans would be very high in interest rate. But now, because they are part of the community, because they are a member of Coril, they would have access to very, very low interest rate credit from 1 to 5%. But more importantly is that sometimes they would have access to credit because they could travel to to the community next door to have access to some financial institution. But what usually happens is that when they're traveling back to the community, they could be attacked by thieves and get this money stolen. So that's a money that they will not be able to, you know, use to generate income generating activity. But most importantly, it's a money that they will have to pay back with high interest rate. So this is one of the key elements that they presented as a result of having the Quorum initiative in the community as a very added value for them. Another element is that in the past 5 years, we've seen a lot of migration, especially among young people who would leave La Victoire because there's not so much opportunities for them to either go to Port-au-Prince or to go to the Dominican Republic. And now some of them reported that more and more young people want to invest because they see they are taking example from others who've been able now to mobilize some resources and start a new economic income generating activity. So they are continuing to share the idea and to promote this kind of initiatives as a tool to keep people in the community and to have them serve the community. And the last thing I would mention is that some of the members raised the fact that beside the economic side of Quorum, they are more they started feeling more the sense of belongingness. And as an organization, as an institution in the community, Quorum is now involving or investing more in community initiative to support all the kind of initiative that the community might have. So this is the situation with Quorum.
And Max, just I wanted to add, since we did look a little bit at the local economic context, the amount of money that they've been able to raise in terms of capital is 2 times their yearly tax revenue for 2015 and 1/9 of the entire communal economy, just to put that into some context, over 1 year.
So this is one of the case study that we'll discuss later on. And now I'm gonna pass it to Johnny, who's gonna present the biggest, one of the biggest commune, but the other initiative that we investigated during this program.
Thank you, Max. And as we go to the next slide, I just wanted to again highlight, you know, the conversation we started earlier in terms of, you know, the need to really be anchored into the community. And this is not something that Clay, you know, sort of came and said, here's where we need to go. Really, number one, we had an organization, a partner organization that was anchored into that community, working with the community members, and who said, you know what, we need someone who can help us facilitate this conversation, right? And bring us some tools that can help us, you know, grow. And so that's when Clay was invited, and we use a lot of the skills and the tools that we got from our partner, Cody, right? All of us at Clay actually had participated in you know, got our, I guess, formative training in ABCD from Cody, and apply those, you know, in collaboration with the community. And they themselves then took that and developed it into this, what you're seeing in now. So none of it is sort of Clay's doing or PDL's is doing, really. At the end of the day, it's the community having the tool, better understanding. Because one of the things that we also showed, the reason we showed the tax revenues, we had a partner come in and actually talk to the members of the communities where we had worked to show them the revenues, because people were expecting the states to do certain things. So we basically showed them, here's the state's revenues, right? It's not going to change your lives. And so you really have the asset to have to make this transformation. My piece is really around the Clairin, and it's really, you know, I think Yogesh actually primed the conversation for me. So I'll just very quickly go through, my slides are just pictures. For those of you who may not know, if you drink alcohol, you might know, but if you don't drink rum, for example, if you know, you probably know that it comes from sugarcane. So, you know, on the left hand of the slide, it's, you know, it's where they grow sugarcane and they cut it and put it on ox and, you know, or, you know, put it on horseback. And next slide, Max. So that's where all the production and then the transportation is all manually done, right? And then they go in and they squeeze the juice out of the, on the left-hand side, out of the cane to get the juice out of it. And on the right-hand side, it's me visiting one of those producers. And it's very, very, very old-fashioned. I mean, it was created back in the colonial days by the French. It's a process that requires a lot of heat, which is, as Kantav mentioned earlier, people had to cut a lot of trees to actually to burn to generate the heat, and it goes through a filtering process that ends up with just really the humidity from the sugarcane that gives us the final product. So that's essentially, you know, transformation. And then you go to, next slide, Max. You go to the initiative that we were doing with them was really coming out of the conversation that, you know, we had during that training while Yogesh was in town. And one of the components, you know, some of the objectives that we had laid out was to make sure that people clearly understand what the value chain was, could see what the you know, where they could intervene to benefit from this product. And so we had a few objectives to improve the production, the collection system, improve access to input and the equipment, lack of information that existed to improve that, develop, you know, market and ensure access to quality service at the producer level, improve the transport network for the raw material and the final products, and finally really increase the income for the producers in the value chain. And I would add, you know, and you know, this is one of the things that Yogesh mentioned as not ancillary, but part of that was also to increase the traceability, updating the packaging to provide a better product. So what we looked at when we really, you know, started to talk to the folks about the value chain, we showed them how and there was one, you know, 2 families in Haiti who were producing clairin and exporting it. And we basically just went through a little exercise with them to just basically show them what this product that they're making, right, is worth. And so this is on the left, you'll see this is a screen captured from this morning. The price is for this product is about $40, right? And we're talking about in Haiti, the producers sell the clairin by the gallon, right? And they sell the gallon for 600 gourds. 600 gourds at today's exchange rate, it's about 110 gourds to a US dollar. 600 gourds is $6. Now, before I even go any further, this is a 50% increase only because of the problems that the country's been facing in terms of coronavirus and everything else. There's limited access to the product. So $600 today, 600 gourds is double the price of what they were selling it for when we were doing the projects with them. And so we're talking about, they were selling it for about $3 at the time, right? Now, 1 gallon has actually 4 bottles in it, right? Now, if you look on the left, 1 bottle is selling for about $40, right? So very easily, you'll see that 1 gallon, right, is actually worth around $200. And yet the gallon's being sold for $6, right? Now, obviously, when we're talking about a value chain, there are a number of actors in this value chain. We would never assume that, you know, the producers will start selling for $100. But we saw tremendous, and they saw tremendous opportunities to actually increase their income, you know, by 100%. So they can actually, if they were able to do all those things that Yogesh mentioned earlier, really develop a good product that has traceability, package it properly, and be able to sell it as do all the transformation and be able to sell it at higher value, they can earn a lot more, which means that there is a tremendous opportunities for this community. Saint Michel, we mentioned earlier, pretty much everyone who lives in that community is involved in the clearing production process, even if they have multiple, kind of products, but Clearin is fundamental to the region. They're known for it. So we were talking with them about it, and they realized there was an opportunity. And so, one of the things, again, we didn't want to take the lead, right? We were there, we helped them see the opportunities, they saw it, they wanted to do it. And one of the things that happened was when you talk about, this kind of community development, this kind of process through ABCD, it has to have an owner, right? It has to have in the community either a group of individual or an organization that actually takes this, right? And the example that Max gave, 30 people came together, they created this, this structure, Corimil, and they were able to literally put together an organization, right? That's now functioning and be able to give loans. And this example, everybody saw the opportunity, right? They saw how much this product that they were selling at a fraction of what it was worth on the international market, or even in the local market, what they could get for it. They saw it and they said, well, we want to do something to make sure that we can capture more value in it. And yet, what we came out with is that we were unable, or they were unable to actually make this a reality. We were in the background because, at the end of the day, they were like, well, can you facilitate the meetings? And, we came and we participated in their first and second meetings, but we did not want to own this because it's not our position, right? To insert ourselves in this value chain, to insert ourselves in this process, in this way. And so, that's for us, the lesson at this point is that this initiative, although recognized by all as a tremendous opportunity for the community, did not go anywhere beyond a few meetings that people initially said, yes, we want to do this. Please come help us facilitate the first conversation because we're talking about people who were competitors, right? And now they wanted to work much more collaboratively. So help facilitate this conversation for us, which we did. But then despite our many follow-ups and say, hey, have you guys followed up? Have you guys had subsequent meetings? It didn't go, any further. So we wanted to show the paradox between the earlier initiative in which a group of folks took it, owned it, and ran with it, and got the support of PDL, got the support of CLE to put together an organization. On the other end, which actually had a lot more money involved, a lot more opportunities, and maybe that's the challenge, did not actually come to fruition. So we wanted to give you two different examples of where it actually worked and where it didn't. So that's those are the two cases we wanted to bring, and those are the two cases we wanted to have a conversation about. Since we're not a lot, I wonder if we should break out or if we can have it together. What do you think, Lucia, Max?
I think we should stay together because we're already past time.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have just finished a documentary on the Carême example, which we would love to show to everybody. So yeah, but if anybody has any other suggestions.
Yeah.
So we're not going to do a breakout. What we really would love is if you have questions or if you have comments, suggestions, or previous experiences that either corroborate or ways that you've engaged with communities to help facilitate this discussion, because Allison, yes, they have to do the work, right? It's their community. But how do we facilitate that, right? Not own it, but how do you facilitate this conversation so that it moves forward?
Can I
Yes,
say
Alice.
something? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yes. I mean, joking aside about you know, who should be there and how much external intervention is appropriate. You know, I think the story is a fascinating one because it does speak to that really wicked question as to, you know, at what point should there be external assistance, and how, and you know, how do you take it to a level where it is self-sustaining? It seems to me, it seems to you all that that there's an obvious advantage to collectivizing the process in some way so that more value can be accrued to the producers. What are the vested interests trying to prevent that from happening would be one question I would have. And you know, what, as an outsider, but who knows the situation much better than those of us who don't know the context, what could you imagine as a possible outcome of this if perhaps there had been more assistance at the you know, with this initiative, with the producers initiative, the sugarcane producers initiative?
Yes, I have a point of view, but I will let other folks add, and I will tell you what I think, and of course my colleagues as well will give their perspective. Yes, Liam.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you, Johnny, and thank you, Max, for very interesting presentations. I'm from Ireland, and we have an organization in Ireland called Value Added in Africa. And the idea is that they trade with producers in different African countries to give a fair price for the product. So the producer gets a benefit. And I'm just wondering, have you explored a similar, for the rum? That was a very good example, the bottle of Claren rum that sells for $40, but yet the producer only gets $6 for the gallon for 5 bottles, you know? So have you explored perhaps direct through fair trade, you know, the fair trade banner? Is there a way of actually getting a better price and better income for people in Haiti as an alternative way to aid, not to take away from aid, but as some way of that the rest of the world can recognize the value that people are putting into their product? That's just my question and comment.
Thank you, Liam. Anyone else?
Joanna had a question as well.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I was late. I had some technical problems. So I found the presentation already in progress. I've got 2 questions. One is to Max. First is, were there any barriers to support community initiatives to participate in the initiatives that you talked about? I think I was in the middle of the leaky bucket. And then to Johnny, I wanted to find out if there were any, why did this initiative not go to fruition? And to also Max, were there any barriers in your, you know, to support those community initiatives?
I'm sorry, could you just repeat mine for me again, Johnny one?
Johnny, I wanted to find out why did the project not get to fruition?
Okay,
Why was it successful?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, Thank you, Joanna, for the question. And my apologies because I saw your question in the chat room, but we were taking all the questions and I forgot to reply to that, to respond to that. Well, obviously there were some barriers, and the first one was engage the participants to the training, because I'm not sure if you heard that, but when we started this relationship with them, they said that they wanted to, you know, to be offered some opportunities to improve their capacity. And what we saw is that we could offer some trainings on life skills, but more importantly on ABCD and development approaches. And because we wanted to have a diverse group that's coming from all part of the department we were, the communes we were delivering the training to, we had to hold the training for 5 days straight. And for some people, they had to walk 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon to go back to their home every day to participate. So that was a big challenge. And in most of the case, women are the one who suffer the most for that, because they couldn't leave their house for 6 years or leave their house at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. in the morning to be at the training facility at 7. So that was one of the challenge, but we saw a lot of interest in participant, and some of them actually did it. They took the 3 to 4 hours walk every day to come to the training, and that was very satisfying. Another element I can tell, and especially about the Coril case, is that some of them reported that there was a problem of trust at the beginning. So when we're dealing with money, right, people definitely want to make sure that they can trust each other before they engage in this kind of activity. And what they reported as a key element to quickly overcome this challenge was the fact that not one person came up and said, this is what we're going to do, because they decided to do it while they were, you know, discussing in the training, and decided that this is the key challenge we're confronting, and having this is the best way for us to deal with it. So in my opinion, and from what they reported, this is one of the elements that quickly helped them overcome this problem of trust to start the credit union.
And on the two questions on my end, I think, and Max kind of touched on what I wanted to talk about a little bit, which had to deal with trust. So we're talking about the producers so the people that came together and recognized the opportunity that existed in the Clairin value chain. Obviously, they're all, some of them just make sugarcane, right? They just grow sugarcane and they sell it. Some of them buy sugarcane, transform it, and some of it take the transformed sugarcane, turn it into alcohol and to Clairin, and sell it to other folks. Now, everybody kind of saw the value, right? But the alignment, there's not a direct alignment between all of them, was number one, right? The people who were most interested in the groups that came together afterwards were the producers who were actually, they would buy sugarcane or they grow their own sugarcane, transform it and sell it, right? So the entire value chain. So they're the folks who came together. That means they were very much in competition with one another. And so Max mentioned the issue of trust was a major challenge, right? They recognized it, but immediately they started talking about, well, one person wanted to take it, right? What's his name? And it's an older gentleman who had been a big producer before. He wanted to be the leader, right? He wanted to take it. On the other side, there was a younger gentleman, and they were mostly men, who was producing, selling throughout the country, was a bit more savvy in terms of technology and all that kind of stuff, who could have be one of the leaders, but did not want to have the conflict, right? So he was very reticent to take any kind of leadership role. And so the next lesson was one of proximity, right? One of the things that PDL being on the ground, they visited, right, these other organizations very often. These groups, you know, we mentioned that PDL has been in the community for, you know, over 20, sometimes some of them for 30 years working with those folks. There was a trust that existed with PDL as an organization that the people who were involved in Corrimil could talk to some of the folks that PDL had on the ground and say, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? They were, you know, they were able to bounce ideas, and they were having other meetings, right, that were not necessarily focused on creating this, but because they were meeting anyway, they recognized that this is something that we can do together, right? And so there was that proximity of working together that made it easier, right, for people to kind of say, yes, I'm willing to put in my hard-earned money. And so the lessons, I think, for us in the Clairin one, I think if we had to do it over, I think it would have been really important from the very beginning to, and I think Clay, I'll take you know, the hit on this one, me in particular, because I was sort of the one leading that piece of the work. I should have been working much more closely with PDL, who's on the ground, right, to continue to do this facilitation with these individuals, because they weren't an organization, right? And play the long game. And this is not over. This is something we still want to do, but play the long game to build the trust that is necessary for this to happen, because there is no question it has to happen, right? It has to happen because they all see the risk of, you know, cutting all the trees, and there won't be any trees for them to even make this stuff, to make the products anymore. The risk of now, for example, there's a limited access to their products, even though, yes, they can sell a gallon for more money, but then they're selling less of it. There's also the risk of, if they can't produce enough, the producers next door in the Dominican Republic will, right, take over the market. And if the producers in the Dominican Republic take over the Haitian market, that's over for them. So I think, you know, everybody knows that this has to happen. And so it's really a playing the long game, making sure that you have local leaders within the community that has the trust, as well as a consistent partner that can continue to accompany them in this, so that they can come together as a group and move it forward with the support of organization like PDL or of organizations like Clay. Oh, and the fair trade question. The fair trade question is there are only, like I mentioned earlier, there's only 2 families who are doing major export of Clairin, of this particular product, from this particular region. There are other regions where Clairin is made, but this region is known, has a reputation for making the best Clairin. There's 2 families that are doing this now. Now, these families, they are their own, they grow their own sugarcane. Every now and then they buy, you know, surplus from other, you know, small holders, producers, but they make their own, right? And they make and sell their own. There isn't yet a company or an organization that could facilitate, right, access to sort of fair trade to get that product to the States or to the UK, you know, essentially exporting it. Tremendous opportunities, unlike coffee, right, which is organized. Cacao is organized. This particular product, unfortunately, the producers are not organized, and therefore there isn't one entity that you can go to and say, I want to buy, you know, this X amount, I'll take care of all the exporting and we'll give you a fair price for it and we'll sell it, market and sell it, you know, in the external market.
Just to ask a quick question about that, would the cost of certification, even if they were organized, be a barrier for some of the farmers?
Certification of the product
should it be fair trade farm?
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's a big debate on the fair trade, right? I mean, there's a lot of literacy on literature on the fair trade question, right? On the coffee side, some people believe that, you know, the fair trade rules are a bit too stringent and too difficult for local producers to meet. Now, for this particular product, because it is a controlled substance, right? There are some health regulations that they would need to follow, because it could very easily turn into ethanol, which could blind or kill you, right? From a fair trade perspective, if there's a third party who can facilitate sort of the export and external market, that would be part of their included in, as part of their costs of doing business. So it wouldn't really impact, it would impact the producer on the tail end in terms of how much they get paid, because that facilitator would take a cut off of the producers, but it wouldn't affect them in a large way. So it wouldn't be a barrier for them.
So it's a question of the organization of the producers into more of a power block to support that.
Yeah, they've tried, they created an organization once, and it fell apart. And again, because of the issue of trust at the end of the day, right? And so that's the key in this particular market. That's the thing that was that I think, you know, more work needs to be built on to create. Leadership is an important aspect of ABCD, and the leadership development component is extremely important. That leads to trust, that leads to the kind of work that we want to do with them.
I just wanted to mention something. Allison put in the comment, she's just left, unfortunately, but she mentioned questions of trust and risk. And so I just wanted to make the point of, you know, we talk about good fences make the good neighbors, and good contracts probably make good business partnerships. And so in a framework where the legal framework for business, for contracts, for this, in general, the rule of law in Haiti is one that is much less regulated and provides a lot more and creates a lot more risk when people are investing money together. And so that perhaps perceived and or real distrust of a system also is a huge barrier to developing those kinds of partnerships, because at the end of the day, the competition that they would be involved in to make this work is conflictual in some sense. It is something that pushes you forward. It's productive conflict, but without the kind of frameworks to make that, to not guarantee, but to ensure your own kind of level of risk and that you can actually manage that, without that being there, that also creates issues. And I would love to invite Contav Jean-Baptiste if he has anything to add to this, because he is so much closer to both of these communities and the insights, not only in these scenarios, but in, I'm sure, many, many examples of similar issues. If he could talk about the kind of reasons or insights he might have for why some of these things get blocked when some of them are so successful. And I'm going to unmute you, Contav.
Can I talk, Lucia? I've got
a
comment.
Sorry.
Just hold on.
I missed part of the discussion because of the internet connection was bad. I couldn't closely follow the discussion, the exchanges. But what I understood through the discussion, the exchanges, is that there is, and Johnny mentioned it, a big question of trust. But I would add also the poor financial infrastructures, and also the limited access to funding in order to follow the suggestion that come out from the training the CLE that CLE tried to provide to the semi-shell producers. But I think that we still have to continue to communicate, to exchange with those producers and to learn from what did not work properly or as expected, and build on to get better success, better result in the future. I think people are still learning, and we also are learning. And then we should not stop our communication, our connection with those people. There are also other challenges they are facing. They cannot solve by themselves. We should also mention the poor accompaniment of the state government officials, and in terms of infrastructures, in terms of physical infrastructures, in terms of finance infrastructures, and all of that, we have to think about that and continue our reflection. And I think that what come out from the training, from the support we are providing to the communities, both in the case of La Victoire or in the case of Saint-Michel de la Talaye, we have to continue, and it is one of the kind of support the participants have asked for, is that CLE should continue to, although we know that CLE is not present in the communities, in the areas, but they can get in touch, and there are questions we cannot answer today, but through the exchanges, we can find the answer together.
Great. We have to be aware of the time, and everybody has very busy schedules. Some of us are at 3 o'clock in the morning, so I have to get to sleep. But we would, Joanna, you had one comment. Do you want to make it quickly before we wrap up?
Yes.
Before we ask everybody to turn their cameras on for a photo?
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you very much, Lucia. I just wanted to make a comment regarding the barriers for supporting community initiatives. In one of the projects where we were training ABCD and the leaky bucket tool, it came clear, that jealousy was one of the key things that made people not to support community initiatives. They would rather go and buy elsewhere instead of supporting the markets within their own communities. So this aspect of jealousy, I think, is one aspect that we need to really explore. So thank you. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you very much.
And I'll just add that yesterday we co-led a session with Robin Neustatter, who is a peace building professor from St. Francis Xavier, and the question of partnership, trust, conflict, transforming conflict towards positive and constructive partnerships. It's something that I think we all can agree is not addressed enough, as absolutely fundamental to the work that we're all doing. And so an intentional space to talk about how to build trust, build solidarity, build alignment, and address conflicts that are always there is something that I think we should absolutely continue in terms of a discussion, and Allison suggested perhaps on an email chain. So we'll gather insights, and we will be sharing that with all of you. But at the moment, I think we must wrap up. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us. This conversation has been really fascinating, and hearing about all of your experiences and seeing all your faces has been a wonderful, heartwarming experience, as always, to bring this community together. So I will ask everyone if you are able to just turn on your cameras, or else we'll take a photo really quick of your name in the block. That's okay. And so I'll do that. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Took a few.
Thanks.
And yes, thank you everyone again for joining us. And
particular thanks to Cantav who travel hours to
Ronel.
come, Ronel and Cantav to travel and make it. They have to leave a meeting they have in their own organization to be there. So really, I really appreciate and thank you for making it.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Have a great day, everyone.
Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are.
Same to you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks, Jorena.